We're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation today. Welcome back to the Pennsylvania Green Gov Sustainability Summit. Today's presentation will focus on how our purchasing power can expand diversity and small business in Pennsylvania. I'm Matt Reese, Green Gov Deputy Director. Thank you for joining the discussion again as we continue through our Sustainability Week. Today's webinar will be recorded for later review and reference and placed on the Green Gov website. A follow-up email will be sent with links to this webinar, as well as all webinars within the Sustainability Week series. Our team will plan to set aside time at the end of this presentation for an interactive question and answer session. We ask that participants keep their microphones muted for the duration of the presentation, with opportunities to unmute afterwards for the question and answer session. Today's webinar features a Spanish translation. This may be accessed through the meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. Tap the Language and Interpretation tab and select the Spanish language. Okay, let's get started with our program. As in past Green Gov Sustainability webinar series, we partner with the Penn State Sustainability Institute and our great friend and colleague, Dr. Peter Boger. Peter is Assistant Director for Outreach and Community Engagement and responsible for helping the Sustainability Institute integrate the university's sustainability initiatives within the community and campus partners. Thanks for all your help, Peter. In 2015, 192 nations adopted the UN Sustainability Development Goals, a framework of 17 goals with 169 definable targets to ensure a sustainable future for all by 2030. The goals identify both social, environmental, economic aspects of sustainability that must be achieved. Today, we will focus on Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which involves inclusive and sustainable economic growth involving productive employment and decent work for all. The Commonwealth is committed to tackling these economic growth challenges through the implementation of Executive Order 2015-11, diversity, inclusion, and small business opportunities in Commonwealth procurement and in Pennsylvania's economy. Starting us off, we're pleased to introduce Joe Lee, Acting Secretary of the Department of General Services, for opening remarks. Secretary Lee oversees Pennsylvania's state government operating agency, which is responsible for the procurement of goods and services, the management of non-highway capital projects, the management of the Commonwealth real estate portfolio, increasing and advancing contracting opportunities for small and diverse businesses, and the maintenance and protection of state-owned buildings and facilities. Prior to DGS, Secretary Lee served as the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry and from 2019 to 22, first as Special Assistant to the Secretary and then as Deputy Secretary for Administration. Secretary Lee began his career serving as a political intelligence analyst at the Central Intelligence Agency, where he also supported the production of the President's Daily Brief as a member of the President's Analytical Support Staff. He later joined North Highland as a management consultant, where he partnered with public sector clients in modernizing HR systems, developing procurement strategies, and managing IT systems integration efforts. Secretary Lee earned his Bachelor of Arts from the Johns Hopkins University and Master of Public Administration from the Fels Institute of Government at the University of Pennsylvania. Take it away, Secretary Lee.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate the introduction, and it's great to be here with you all. As Matt indicated, I am the Acting Secretary at the Pennsylvania Department of General Services, and it's absolutely my pleasure to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn session for the 2022 Pennsylvania Sustainability Week. Our mission here at DGS is to help government operate more efficiently, effectively, and safely, delivering exceptional value for all Pennsylvanians. And that's why we at DGS were so proud to house the PA Green Gov Council within this agency and lead efforts within the Commonwealth to make sustainability a priority for state government agencies and ultimately all of the Commonwealth. Of course, it also helps that the mission of the PA Green Gov Council aligns nicely with the core functions and strategic vision of DGS and of course, the Commonwealth. Now, when we talk about sustainability, it's very important, as some of you know, to consider how we knit equity within the fabric of sustainability initiatives impacting communities across the Commonwealth. One important way we are doing this at DGS is through the staff at the Bureau of Diversity, Inclusion, and Small Business Opportunities, or as we affectionately refer to it as BDISBO. Through BDISBO, our sustainability efforts go beyond the megawatts and carbon emissions and energy cost savings by directly tying sustainability goals with equitable outcomes we want to foster in the Commonwealth. At BDISBO, we have been able to make sure financial sustainability issues like growth and the ability to compete in the Commonwealth's economy and keeping our dollars in the communities that support them are not overlooked or underestimated. We promote and encourage an inclusive, fair, and level playing field for small, diverse, and veteran-owned businesses, and make sure that these key stakeholders have a seat and voice at the table. Through the efforts of BDISBO, we've seen significant improvement in our support to these businesses. In fact, more than $3.5 billion have been spent with small, diverse, and veteran businesses since 2015 at the start of the Governor Wolf's administration. Their share of the total Commonwealth spend rose from 7.6% in 2015 to just over 20% in 2020. Additionally, last year's spending with small businesses, small diverse businesses, and veteran business enterprises totaled nearly $856 million, the largest yearly amount on record, and we fully anticipate this number to grow in a forthcoming report to be released in a few weeks' time. Now, at this time, I am proud to introduce BDISBO Director Lisa Sanford, who will provide more detail on the progress and future of BDISBO in relation to this specific UN sustainability goal of promoting sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth with full and productive employment and decent work for all. Lisa?
Thank you, Secretary Lee. I appreciate your comments. And so a lot of my bio represents the work I previously did at the state of Maryland, but I've also done pretty much the same thing here in Pennsylvania. I consider myself homegrown. Even though I'm coming from Maryland, I was raised here in Pennsylvania and went to the University of Pittsburgh. So I consider myself a homegrown girl. Next. So as you got a brief introduction into BDISBO and our acronym of who we are and what we do, I just want to briefly let you know that what we do primarily is we run the state's socioeconomic programs. So next. So, and the way that I'm going to tie this into the theme of this summit is through ESG, environmental social governance. And this is an element also through the United Nations, where it originated, where the United Nations has come up with a rating system for businesses, kind of like you have your credit score rating system. Well, this is a rating system for corporations to indicate how are their operations scored? How do they view themselves in the area of the environment, of social equity, and governance? So this is perfectly tied to what you guys are studying and sharing this week. So this is fairly new. As I was telling the production team right before the meeting, I was in the structured finance capital markets arena prior to moving into government. And so I was surprised and pleasantly surprised to hear about this new rating system. And it very much so excited me to know that it has expanded into our capital markets. I think it's an awesome opportunity for future generations to take a hold of and move all of our countries in the world forward in terms of looking at all three of these segments. Next. So I'll quickly just want to tell you what ESG means. The environmental part is what everybody always probably thinks it is, climate change, biodiversity, how we're handling our wastewater, our pollution, deforestation, things of that nature. The social side of things is related to employees and to labor markets, supply chains, human rights, work-life balance, and my favorite one is employee well-being, because if you don't have all of these sustainable activities in what you do, what good is doing everything if the community itself is not thriving? Now, governance, that would be boards of directors, government agencies like ourselves. The types of programs that I'm going to share with you today are equity and inclusion programs, as well as regulatory compliance. Next. So here's how DEI and small business work together here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And as Matt said at the beginning, this is related to sustainable goal number 8 for the UN. And we're going to talk about the Commonwealth's purchasing power. As you heard Secretary Lee discuss some numbers with you, I'm going to share a few more. Next. First, I like to give kind of a definition of DEI because its acronym is growing. I've heard recently it's DEIA, accessibility added onto it, but there are so many components of it. First is it's about equality. And I love the image here that shares with everyone that equality is everybody gets a pair of shoes, all right? Diversity is everyone gets a different type of shoe. Equity is that everybody gets a shoe that fits them. Acceptance is understanding that we all wear different kinds of shoes. So that doesn't mean we all have running shoes or stilettos. So belonging is, I believe, going to be the next acronym, the B to all of this, is belonging. Wearing a shoe that works for you without fear of judgment. And I love the fact that they have a Croc here, because years ago when Crocs first came out, I was a huge Croc wearer and my kids judged me every single day about my Crocs. And guess what? Now it's fashionable and they all wear Crocs. So I'm glad I had the foresight to just go ahead and wear those Crocs anyway, because now look, I should have bought stock in them. What I see for all of these things, what it equals up to is innovation. And innovation, to me, is the key to creativity, sustainability, and community. Next. So let me share with you the Commonwealth programs in case you don't already know. Next. So our office runs 3 distinct socioeconomic programs. They are all small businesses. That's the first category. And the small business category is not what Webster's definition of small business. It's actually the Commonwealth's General Assembly definition of a small business. And the small diverse businesses are diverse businesses such as minority-owned, women-owned, LGBT-owned, service-disabled veterans, companies that have a diverse component to them. And then we have the Veteran Business Program, separate and distinct from all of the other programs. So we have 3 programs, we have different target goals that we try to meet overall for the entire Commonwealth. It doesn't mean for every project or for every agency, it's the Commonwealth's overall achievements that we'd like to see. Next. And here's a QR code if you'd like to learn more about BDISBO and what we do and how we operate. It is chock full of information, and I believe this will be posted later, so you'll have a chance to check out our website in more details later. Next. So as Secretary Lee was sharing with you, he shared with you how the beginning of this administration started out at about 7.6% in terms of participation of small businesses, all 3 categories together, in the beginning of the administration. And over the years, we've tweaked the program, made some changes, and then made more changes, got some new perspectives on programs, consulted with other states, looked at other ways that we can enhance and increase the opportunities for small business to participate in Commonwealth opportunities, because the Commonwealth is a large spender. And the bulk of the money that we're talking about is not our payroll. It's mostly regarding our operational expenditures, which come to about $4 to $5 billion per year that's applicable to these programs. So that's what our measuring stick is. And as you can see, as of our last report, we were up to 20%, which is huge in terms of progress. And yes, we're excited that our new report is coming out and the upward trend is continuing. Next. So as Secretary Lee or Matt mentioned, I'm not sure which one, our program operates under the governor's executive order 2015-11. The previous governor had an executive order, and this governor just carried it on and added some changes to it to make it a little better, which we've been implementing. And so we're proud that governors take notice of the impact that their spending has and how we can help increase the small businesses and help sustain their livelihood and in turn build better, stronger community. Next. Most recently, you might have seen or heard about President Biden's executive order, which came out, I believe, the day of inauguration. And he also affirms the same thing that the governor basically said in his executive order in terms of, enhancing programs, policies, compliance related things to help underserved groups. So we have it from the top, and that's why we've been so successful. Next. So what is our road to sustainability? Next. So let me give you some foundational blocks of how our program has operated in the past few years. We've done a lot of work with very few resources, but we've managed to get things done. In October of 2018, we had a disparity study, that report that was released. It was a 5-year study of the procurement activities of the Commonwealth, and there were a list of recommendations. We took a list of the took a look at the recommendations and decided what can we implement right away and how should we go about it. So we devised some changes to our policies in record time, in about 7 months, less than 7 months. And then we operated some of the policies under pilot programs just to test them out, get everybody internally acclimated to what was coming down the pike, getting the business community acclimated, the primes, as well as the small businesses. And then we did some further tweaking of our VBE policy because there was already a policy established in our statute, which there was law already existing. So we took a look at that and figured a way to really enforce that and help the veteran businesses at the same time. So in 2020, in the midst of COVID, yes, we still continued with our policy changes, and we went live with our programmatic changes on top of all of the other changes, such as telework changes that we had going on at the same time. And to finish that off, in that year, we drafted legislation so that all the changes, policy changes that we're making, we can put them into law and codify them so that the business community can have faith in the government system, that they're not going to be jerked around from year to year in terms of their opportunities with the Commonwealth. It's a really big deal for small businesses to know that they matter and that the Commonwealth sees them, hears them, understands their unique needs, and continues to keep them in the forefront in terms of economics and spend. And so we're pleased that that legislation is been revamped to Senate Bill 1140, and it is still alive at this time. We'll see if what has to happen next session. But we're very proud of that fact because that's a huge accomplishment to go from a study to changes in policy, testing, implementation to legislation. We are only about one of 4 states that actually have these types of programs in legislation or proposed to be in legislation. So we're very proud that we are one of the front runners in terms of these programs. We do have our next disparity study. A disparity study should happen about every 5 years. And we just released our RFP last week. And so we're looking to have the next disparity done and completed by 2024. So in 2022, we've had the Senate bill proposed to a committee, as well as a House bill to make some changes to the program also submitted. So we're very proud of those legislative changes. Next. So just a quick recap of the legislative process, which I've pretty much shared with you, is that we drafted the policy, got legislation. I didn't know there were so many other steps in between, but there's a legislative review board. They take a look at everything with a fine-tooth comb. Then we had to find sponsors. This is all a part of the steps that we need to do to make sure that our program is sustainable, that it stays alive, that it carries over through administration so that it can continue on in life without, in regard to whatever administration or whatever political party there is in power at the time. The goal is small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and the Commonwealth has a duty, being a large purchaser, to make sure that small businesses are included. Next. Some of the features of our Senate bill is that we follow constitutional guidelines. We're not making these programs up. The feds have been using these programs for about 40 years now. So there have been a lot of tried and true court cases regarding the programs. And so we decided to follow the guidelines of the feds, and that helps us give us some structure and a framework in which to operate. The main feature of this bill is to really make sure that the small business community can see integrity in the programs, and that future generations will also see that there is opportunity, even as a small business, to do work with the large purchasers such as the Commonwealth. And all of this impacts the Pennsylvania economy in some form or fashion. Next. Just to talk about that economic impact, as Secretary Lee shared last annual report, there were $856 million in payments to the small business community. Yes, largest ever on record. And we ran the numbers through an economic impact model, and it showed that about $68 million of that went towards state and local taxes. And of course, the feds have to get their share, which was at about $125 million. So that's just to show you a little bit about the impact. Doesn't even touch on how many employees that may have been hired through this work, or how many households have been impacted. This is just a very high level impact based on the spend. Next. One of the things we're proud of is that this summer we had an intern who worked with us, and he created a beautiful spreadsheet that includes all 67 counties and links to their procurement bid boards and links to any of their small and local programs that they have operating in different counties, even smaller jurisdictions. For example, City of Harrisburg is on the list, so that businesses, if they're not yet ready to do work with the Commonwealth, because even to provide one agency with t-shirts for an event, that's a large order for a small business. So we like to give businesses other opportunities where they can gain some capacity and increase their capabilities. So we like to share with them other opportunities. And so we also included the university systems. because a lot of them have their own DEI programs too. So we put everything in one place, which saves the businesses a huge amount of administrative time trying to track things down and figure out where to go for things. So we are pleased that we created this resource for the small business community. Next. So you will hear in upcoming learn sessions about some federal programs that we are also keeping our finger on the pulse about. The first one is one most everybody's heard in the news, is the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. It's called BILL. And what's very unique about that particular federal program is that it is also going to award grant money to smaller entities who can help small businesses with supportive services. Supportive services are technical assistance, some hands-on services that businesses need assistance with to, get the ball rolling or ramp up or, expand. Technical assistance would include things like, excuse me, business plans, excuse me. Sorry about that. Business plans, understanding balance sheets, things of that nature. Some of the agencies and state entities.
Lisa, do you want to take a minute?
Yes.
And okay, we'll be back in 1 minute, folks.
Sorry.
For what it's worth, I hate when that happens to me too. I think
we've all been there.
Yeah, I think the audience is very understanding.
Thank you.
And terrific job so far, Lisa. We certainly appreciate all the efforts. It's quite impressive.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So some of the state entities to watch are the PennDOT. As you can imagine, the infrastructure dollars is about $5 billion. DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, DCNR, our Conservation and Natural Resources, SEPTA, they have their own pot of money, Turnpike Authority. So as you can see, a lot of money is coming down the pike. Next. To kind of cap off, this is our upward trend of where we are, and we expect that to continue to grow. Next. Okay, so I hope you, for my breakdown, all saw the holistic view of how our programs affect sustainability and how they create sustainability for the future. Our focus is on businesses and who makes up these businesses? Humans, communities. What are we trying to accomplish? A stable economy. That's why there's socioeconomic programs. And I'm so thrilled that ESG through the UN has been introduced, because that shows the governments have responsibility in this particular arena. Legislation, it's a long-term, one of the long-term solutions that we can offer the business community to make sure the big picture is viewed. Okay, next. Take it away, Matt.
Well, thanks, Lisa. We certainly appreciate all of your efforts and your fantastic presentation today. We're proud of the work that you do at DGS, and your efforts to secure the ESG policy advancements through proposed legislation is certainly impressive. And we can open the floor now to, if anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to place them into the meeting chat or to unmute yourself, and we can have more of an open forum question and answer as we go forward. I have a question to start us out first, though, Lisa, and really it's I guess is in your time, or you're putting together I guess the metrics on how far we are with diversity and inclusion as far as a part of the Commonwealth's piece of doing business. Can you speak to the a little bit more on the growth of that in the past couple years, or since you've been here on the DGS team?
Sure. The biggest growth, well, maybe Secretary Lee can help.
I'm sorry, what was the question, Matt?
Basically, it's like, can you speak to how much growth and I guess monetary wise, as far as how the diversity and inclusion contracts have grown within Pennsylvania in the past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a credit to Lisa and some of her past experience, both in the private sector and public sector. She, as you know, she comes from Maryland, so adopting some best practices from there. And as we indicated, 7.5% to just over 20% is a huge accomplishment. And so I can't thank Lisa and her leadership, and of course Kerry Kirkland, who's couldn't be here today, but he's our Deputy Secretary for Diversity, Inclusion, and Small Business Opportunities, and they have just been tireless advocates, just from day one of just making sure that small, diverse, and veteran business enterprises have access to these opportunities so that they can bring some of this economic impact back into their communities. And while we're talking about economic impact, Lisa alluded to some of the tax revenues that are coming back to state and local, and of course the federal level. And we're very excited. We're partnership with our Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry and the Center for Workforce Information and Analysis, and they are doing some high-level economic impact studies for us that we hope to share in the coming months. And that information will provide an additional lens, an additional story and narrative to tell with regard to the great work that is so important and critical to communities everywhere. And so Lisa alluded to jobs, certainly jobs and job creation as well as part of this, but also some of the revenue generation and how that's sustaining communities across the Commonwealth, both in traditionally underserved communities in rural areas or perhaps in inner city urban areas and everywhere in between. So I hope that answers your question. And I don't know if Lisa had anything to add to that.
So in the historical chart that we showed earlier, dollar-wise, we've gone from 354 million to 856 million, which I believe is about 142% increase.
It certainly is impressive, and the efforts that Pennsylvania is making to ensure an equal playing field for all is really the path forward to the continued economic success for everybody. And to have that be a piece of legislation and to get that secured and baked in, so to speak, into our operations in the future is really a terrific move. And you should be exceedingly proud of where you are with the program and where we are as Pennsylvania as a whole too going forward. So I guess we'll open it up. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can place the questions in the chat and I can certainly read them out.
Hi, this is Mark Hand, Green Gov Director. I have a question. I hate to bother Lisa right now with you in the middle of all this, but I was just kind of curious if there's a goal beyond. I know we hit 20% or somewhere around 20% in contracting. Do we have a larger goal? And then where are other states stand on that? They're the ones that are leading this effort.
So the goals for each state are determined by their disparity study. So I don't want to speak to what they're doing. New York's about 30%, but they have some really huge major infrastructure projects that leads them to be able to meet those goals. For instance, the Tappan Zee Bridge was like a 8-year project. So they were able to obtain a lot of their goals based on that project alone. So, but if you take a look at, you take out those anomalies, we're pretty much right there with the other states. So that's why we have a disparity study every 5 years to kind of tell us, where are we? How good are we meeting, closing the gap on the disparity? And so we just only had one study done, so we don't know yet until we have the next study to see how close we are to closing that gap. So we have our own internal target, and we're moving forward. Every percentage point, those of you who are in finance and numbers can understand that it takes a lot of dollars, about $50 to $100 million to change every percentage point. So right now, we're just focusing on processes and our policies, because if we get that down and get this ingrained into our culture and into our procurement practices, that alone helps drive things forward. So we don't focus so much on the numbers and changes, but actually on the processes that we're doing. Hope that answers you.
And that certainly is important. And, I wasn't aware of the metric and the cost associated with what it takes to move each one of those percentage points. So I think that's really helpful for folks to hear. So it's commitment on many different levels. And, I know that the disparage studies go out and help to set the diverse business participation goals within our contracts going forward, where they are solicited with those specific performance goals within them, and that has been a relatively new, and I may be dating myself here a little bit, but within the past couple of administrations, but a lot of that didn't exist in the past, and just to see how that has come, and so I think you said 156% growth. I mean, that's dramatic. And to have those numbers and to show that, who wouldn't want to show 156% growth in any one of their program areas? It's like, and not only that, but I think that each one of the in a case like this, it's like where the community benefits in such a huge way. Pennsylvania, when it contracts and is essentially putting the taxpayer dollars back into the community. And to have that be an equal playing field and continue to do so and to lift up that is really something special. And your program certainly shows the success in that.
Thanks. I saw someone make a question in the chat about the effect. Stay tuned. Our next annual report is going to give some information about the actual economic impact and what the multiplier effect is on that. Yes.
Another question, and I can read it out, and it says, can you touch a little more on how you're working to reach the small businesses that may not be aware of the upcoming opportunities, especially with the IIJA/IRA funds?
So each agency who is receiving those funds, they're responsible to do their outreach to the business community, and we are at the table with them, working with them. We actually house the database of small businesses, so we're constantly sending out email blasts. We are now working with our website content editors to push this information out through social media, through the DGS websites such as Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. That's where we are right now. And hopefully, the more that people hear about things and direct them our way, that's our mechanism right now to reach the small business community, as well as not only are we talking to the businesses directly, stakeholders. So we reach out to the chambers of commerces, different associations, construction associations, IT associations, legal associations, whoever we come across that we feel like they have an opportunity to share our news and to share our program, that's who we target. And if you have any organization that you'd like for us to reach out to, please contact me.
Lisa, what's the best way to contact BDISPO for any questions?
So Mary, if you could put in the chat, it's L Sanford, SANFORD @pa.gov.
And I have a question, if you'll indulge me, Matt and Mark. So Lisa, I know you've done a lot of work around capacity building, and some of that work is underway with regard to small businesses and making sure that those efforts are sustainable for the long term. I wonder if you could share a little bit of light on some of the thoughts that you had around building capacity for the small businesses that we work with. I know you had mentioned some talk about mentorship programs and things of that nature.
Yes. So we have been running a very loose mentor protege program for the past few years. COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench into that as everybody was trying to, scramble to stay alive per se. So we have for the last 3 years though, been working with some of our large contractors to ask them to, take a firm or two under their wing and help them in terms of introductions to different agencies and even to other clients outside of the Commonwealth. Right, so that we can, make sure that our businesses do get some of the guidance they need. A lot of guidance also comes from our local PTAC offices, which are the Pennsylvania Technical Assistance Centers, which is a federal program, as well as the SBA also runs some programs around the Commonwealth. And so other ways that we hope to do in the future is to have a fund set up where we can actually maintain offer the technical assistance on an ongoing basis. As I said, with the bill infrastructure money, that is going to be given to PennDOT in order for them to run. So we're working with them to make sure that businesses that are in the heavy highway construction area, that they can tap into that resource to get more technical assistance to grow their capacity and their capabilities and what they have to offer. But we'd like to see that across the board for all types of businesses, not just for highway construction. So always something we're working on and looking into. And as you can imagine, we need money to do that. And that means we need support from the community as well as support from our legislators.
I've seen the success of putting in the percentage, the minimum percentage, and having that go up for diverse small business and veteran-owned business participation into contract solicitations, and over time, and then seeing firsthand that group of diverse small business and veteran-owned contractors grow. And folks that we didn't even know was out there, and it's been really impressive. And to have, and in many ways, is what that does is when it's in the contract solicitation, and as we continue to grow that number in it, it really helps to build that community, and that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So linking that back to and I wasn't aware of working with some of the larger contractors to take others under their wing is certainly a huge benefit, and will only help to move that ball further.
Yes, it's an uphill battle here in Pennsylvania because the program has taken a beating over the past administrations. It's been there, it's been taken away, it's been there, and taken away. And so the business community is like, here you go again. And so we're really trying to, at this juncture, it was an uphill trajectory. So we don't want to see that go down because the businesses will lose faith in us. And we don't want that to happen because we want future generations to look towards the government as a potential source of income for what they do. But, you know, every business isn't created to be able to service the Commonwealth. We are really large and we cover a lot of land. You know, just like if you take in the trucking industry, well, yes, we may need fuel delivery somewhere, but do we have enough businesses to cover the breadth of our entire state? Right? So the more that we can publish and share our information and show the growth, because we can't promise anything, right? We can't promise that they'll win a contract. All we could do is teach them how to be engaged in the process. And we do that primarily through our goal setting program to force the large businesses to do it. Because it's an absolute fact. If we were not forcing the large businesses to meet certain goals, they wouldn't do it. They'd self-perform the work. They would use people they've always used before. And so that's a proven fact. So we're very pleased with the numbers that we're doing. And yes, there's growing pains associated with it. And the large businesses, you know, are the first ones to cry. They don't want their business models to change. But, you know, we have the power and we have the responsibility as a major purchaser to say, look, you're going to have to make this change. Just like the ESG, the scoring mechanism is happening at the UN level. You know, businesses now have to have some sort of score, whether it's one they do themselves or a peer review or an outside, you know, entity give them a score on how they handle their environmental aspects of their business, you know, what social impacts they have from their business and how they govern their business. So all of these things have a great economic impact.
Yeah, and thanks, Lisa. And that speaks to the consistency and, you know, certainly having the efforts to make legislation in place to keep that consistency in those contract solicitations with built-in diverse small business and veteran-owned components is huge. And, you know, really that's the key to overcoming any growing pains and solidifying that work base or that contractor base going forward. We're going to open it right now. If there's any other questions, we have just a couple of minutes left. Feel free to unmute yourself or place them in the chat.
Matt, if there are no other questions, I have one more, if I can.
Please.
Throw Lisa's way. So Lisa, I know you and BDISPO has done a great work with the Commonwealth, but I'm wondering if you can speak to some of the partnerships and collaborations that we have with you know, hospital systems and universities, and talk about some of that landscape as well with regard to you know, work with the small diverse businesses and goal setting.
Oh, okay. So you're correct. We do share our operations, our policy documents, not only with other states, but local jurisdictions. We can give them guidance on, you know, how they can create their small business programs and stay within constitutional legal framework and guidelines. So we do that on a frequent basis. Most recently, the City of Philadelphia Parking Authority, you know, the ones that have that television show where everybody gets mad at them. So they called and they wanted to see how they were operating their program and was it, were they doing it correctly and what could they do to improve it? So we have consulted with them to let them know our opinions on that and gave them some other resources to, you know, make sure that they could double check on what we're saying, work with their attorneys. We also do collaborate with the healthcare industry. A lot of them have their own supplier diversity programs. I believe at least one of them actually uses our database as a list of potential vendors, so that's great. The universities through PASHI, they also do some goal setting on their own for their projects at universities, and they also use our database. So that's great. So whenever people can use our database and not reinvent the wheel and have a different one going is always a good thing. You know,
Lisa,
so
this
everybody's
dovetails.
opting on a
Excuse
shoestring
me.
budget. What'd you say, Matt?
I was just going to say that this dovetails perfectly with a question that just got placed within the chat, and it says, how can we access this work for our own purchases and contracts? We are working hard to diversify our vendors.
Oh, great. Yes. So it is the DGS Supplier Search. I'll take a moment to find the link and put it in the chat. But it's a database, and you can search by, well, we use UNSPSC codes. We don't use NAICS codes, but there's a way you can use keyword searches and use the advanced search feature. Don't use the quick search. Quick search is only if you know the actual vendor's name. So if you're looking for vendors in a particular industry or area, you want to search by the UNSPSC code. We also have listed on there our state master contracts, which we call ITQs. So we have one, for instance, for tree trimming, right? And it's listed on that website. So if you're looking for someone who can handle tree trimming, there's a list of vendors who've already pre-qualified to do work for the Commonwealth that you're free to contact for that too. So yes, we try to explain to our small businesses, we're just another avenue for advertising too, and that their profile needs to be up to date, make sure that the contact information is correct, because it's not only the Commonwealth employees looking at this or the prime contractors, it's anybody, it's a public portal. Thank you, Paula, for posting that. And by the way, Paula is our supplier search trainer. She has a training coming up October 13th. And if Paula, if you want to put that link in the chat, that would be great too. And so we go over some details of how to do the search so that you get the results that you're looking for. There are some tricks to the trade to do that. Great.
Fantastic, and thanks for sharing that information. So in a bit of roundup here, we'd like to thank everybody for attending today. And there's still more of the Sustainability Summit left. We have tomorrow's presentation again at noon. Will feature Acting Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection, Remez Zaida, and Ned Brockmeyer, Community Forester, Bureau of Forestry at DCNR, and Lori Yaich at Recreation and Conservation Manager, Bureau of Recreation and Conservation at DCNR. And there's certainly a QR code there at both of these to sign up with. And then also our final event of the Sustainability Week, Friday, will feature Deputy Secretary John Norbeck and the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, and Troy Vanetta, Sales and Marketing Supervisor at Correctional Industries, where we'll be learn more about what is being done with PA hardwoods and correctional inmates and efforts to get some rehabilitation. And thanks everybody for your participation, your enthusiasm. Certainly thank you, Lisa, for your terrific presentation, all the efforts that you do. It's certainly impressive. Thank you, Secretary Lee. We certainly appreciate you joining in today and helping along with the feedback. And everybody, it's just been a really fantastic Sustainability Week, and we look forward to the next couple of days and hope that everybody can join in.
Great. Thanks everyone for bearing with me and my sinus issue.
Thank you all. Much appreciated.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.